Hi, welcome back to Synopsins. This video is something that you don't want to miss out on. I will be showing you all the villains' origin story in under 15 minutes. First up, villains from the Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire. Our first character is Green Goblin, arguably the most iconic antagonist in the franchise. He is, after all, the first supervillain introduced in the Spider-Man cinematic universe in 2002. However, he was initially introduced as Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn's father and owner of scientific corporation Oscorp. Norman experimented on himself with performance-enhancing chemicals by using the resources he had. He went insane and stole the signature glider and flight suit, killing his assistants in the process. He used his newfound power to infiltrate Oscorp's corporate rival, Quest Aerospace, and destroyed their experiments, also killing several people. Completely unrelated to the killings, Norman learned that Oscorp's board of directors are planning to oust him and sell their company to Quest. Knowing this, Norman, again, kills them using a pumpkin bomb in his newly designed costume. Peter Parker already discovered his powers and has dubbed himself as Spider-Man. He had defeated Norman, but he still managed to escape. The Daily Bugle then dubbed him as the Green Goblin. Norman knows Spider-Man's secret identity and starts to target the people Peter holds dear. He injured Aunt May and even took Mary Jane hostage. In one final fight, the Goblin took Spider-Man to the abandoned smallpox hospital. He taunted Peter, saying how he'll kill Mary Jane when he's done with him. This provoked Peter and made him enraged, allowing him to give that final push to overpower the Goblin. Norman, in a moment of desperation, unmasks himself and begs for forgiveness. Little did Peter know, Norman was secretly controlling his glider to impale him from behind. However, Peter's spider senses warned him to dodge, and the glider impaled Norman instead. His one final wish is for Peter to keep Norman's identity a secret from Harry before dying. Our second character is Dr. Octopus, initially known as Dr. Otto Octavius. He was first introduced in Spider-Man 2 back in 2004. Dr. Octavius is a nuclear scientist working at Oscorp, heading their genetic and scientific research division. He uses powered robotic tentacle arms to aid him with his projects, one of which is a fusion power reactor. In his latest public demonstration, there was a power spike that caused the fusion reactor to destabilize. Despite that, Octavius refused to shut the project down, which caused the death of his wife, Rosie, and destroyed parts of his nervous system. Luckily, Peter came in to save the day and shut the experiment down, while also destroying everything in the process. They tried to save Octavius, but in the middle of performing the surgical procedure to remove his robotic arms, they somehow killed all the doctors. Upon regaining consciousness, Octavius was welcomed by what I can only describe as carnage. He took refuge at a harbor but became increasingly influenced to redo the experiment. He robbed banks to fund his experiment, and the Daily Bugle dubs him Dr. Octopus. Octavius had everything he needed, but was missing the isotope tritium to fuel his reactor. He confronted Harry, the owner of Oscorp, for the isotope. They struck a deal instead, where Harry will give the isotope in return for Spider-Man, whom he believes is responsible for his father's death. After a lot of fights, Octavius did end up capturing Spider-Man and handed him over to Harry, only for Harry to unmask the hero and realize that it was Peter Parker all along. Peter convinced Harry that Octavius is a bigger threat than anyone thinks and asked him to direct him to Octavius. Before we move on, we'd just like to say thank you to the sponsor of this video, you. Your support drives us to make more content just like this one. So if you like what you see, give us a like and subscribe. Alright, back to the video. After one final fight, Spider-Man emerged victorious and revealed himself to Octavius. He pleaded with Octavius to let things go for the greater good. Octavius, with the little control he had left, commands the tentacles to obey him and sacrifices himself to destroy the experiment. essentially killing him. Our third character is Sandman, the third and last antagonist introduced in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man series in 2007. The Sandman is actually an escaped convict called Flint Marko, who fell into an experimental particle accelerator that fused his body with the surrounding sand, allowing him to morph his body to any shape and form. It was also revealed later that he was Uncle Ben's killer, which was mentioned in the first Spider-Man movie. It's quite difficult to talk about Sandman's entire plot in this movie because there was just so many things going on as well. We were introduced to Venom, which is a storyline that intertwined but still stands on its own. In hindsight, that sounds like a genius plot. On the other hand, it's quite a pain in the ass to explain. To summarize the twisted merging plotline, we're introduced to the symbiote that initially attached itself to Peter, allowing him to have enhanced abilities. However, after accidentally hitting Mary Jane, Peter realizes that the symbiote also makes him more reckless and violent. He removed the symbiote, fearing the negative effects it will have on him. The symbiote then attached himself to Peter's denounced rival photographer, Eddie Brock. Seeking revenge on Peter, who he deduced is Spider-Man, Brock approached Marko as Venom and convinced him to join forces to kill Spider-Man. Brock abducted Mary Jane and held her captive, while Marko kept the police force at bay. As you may realize, a 2v1 fight is quite unfair, not that any fight is fair to begin with if you have plot armor, but I digress. Around this time, Harry learned about the truth behind his father's death from his butler, that Norman brought his demise upon himself. It was then that Harry decided to aid Peter and save MJ as the new Green Goblin. Brock attempts to impale Peter with Harry's glider, but Harry sacrificed himself by jumping in, impaling himself instead. Peter tried to use a pumpkin bomb to destroy the separated symbiote, but Brock decided to step in and died along with it. Marko, defeated but not dead, explained that Ben's death was an accident and it has haunted him ever since. All the robbery, it's all to collect enough money to pay for his daughter's surgery. Peter forgives Marko and allows him to escape, making Sandman the only, canonically, supervillain that is still roaming free and alive. Kind of. Next, we have villains introduced in the Amazing Spider-Man 2-part series starring Andrew Garfield. The Lizzard was first introduced in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, or as some people call it, Spider-Man 4. The Lizard's original identity is Dr. Kurt Connors, a one-armed scientist working at Oscorp in the field of cross-species genetics. His superior, Dr. Rotha, pressures him to formulate a cure for the dying head of Oscorp, Norman Osborn. Connors was working on a serum that could regenerate limbs. With the help of Peter Parker, who gave him his late father's decay rate algorithm, Connors was able to create a theoretical cure. By using strands of lizard DNA as a base, he was able to successfully regenerate a mouse's limb. Knowing his success, Rotha demands that Connors begin human trials immediately. Connors rejected the idea, for obvious reasons. Rotha fired Connors and decided to test the serum at a Veterans Administration hospital instead, disguising it as a flu shot. Desperate, Connors tried the formula on himself. He then passed out and awoke with 2 arms attached to him. However, he noticed that his skin starts to turn green and scaly, making him look like, you guessed it, a lizard, a hybrid between lizard and man. Not only did his physical appearance change, he seems to achieve superhuman strength and became more violent. He intercepted Rotha, who was on his way to the hospital, and tossed cars left and right. Then Spider-Man came, and so they fought it out. The Lizard escaped to the sewers and learns that Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. The Lizard, driven by either hatred or a very skewed sense of justice, planned to disperse the serum from the Oscorp Tower to make everyone lizard-like. He did manage to make several victims to lizard people, but not long until Spider-Man, with the help of Gwen Stacy, concocted an antidote cloud to reverse the effects of the original serum, including Connors. He was then captured and put to jail. No. The fifth supervillain we are introduced to is the one, the only, Electro. Electro is first introduced in the next part of the Amazing Spider-Man series as Max Dillon. Max Dillon is an electrical engineer with a clean history that got saved by Spider-Man. He got distracted thinking about Spider-Man and accidentally shocked himself, tripped, and fell into a tank filled with genetically engineered electrical eels. He mutated as a result and basically became a living electrical generator. He somehow wandered into Times Square as if enamored by his surroundings, but as physics dictate, an oversurge of power will destroy the circuit components. Blackout. Spider-Man intercepted and stopped Dillon from harming anyone anymore, then took him into custody to the Ravencroft Institute to be studied by German scientist Ashley Kafka. However, it wasn't long until he was confronted by the newly ousted CEO of Oscorp, Harry Osborn. He proposed a deal to Dillon, who now calls himself Electro, that he can help him, with the condition that he helps Harry to break into the Oscorp building. Dillon agreed and killed Dr. Kafka in the process. On that note, also consider killing us with kindness by liking and subscribing to our channel. That way we know that you like what we do and we'll be able to make content that you love to watch. Anyways, back to Electro. Electro went back to the city and caused another blackout. Spider-Man comes in yet again to stop Electro. They manage to get the power back on and overloads Electro's body, thus killing him. This is where Electro's story ends. Now, I'd just like to give my prediction on who the sixth supervillain might be. If you're a hardcore Marvel fan like me, I think we're all thinking about the same thing. However, for those of you casual viewers, let me just drop this name right here, the Hobgoblin. First of all, who's Hobgoblin? Hobgoblin is a villain introduced in the Marvel comics as a common enemy of Spider-Man, not to be confused with the Green Goblin, although they do share a lot of similarities. He was first introduced in the 238th release of The Amazing Spider-Man as this guy called Roderick Kingsley. They just wanted a character that could be the heir to Green Goblin. Throughout the serialization of this comic, lots of writers come and go to reveal different versions of the Hobgoblin. They got a bit more creative towards the end, mixing in possible motives to take on the mask of Hobgoblin. Now, what does this have to do with the sixth supervillain? In Tom Holland's Spider-Man, we're introduced to Ned, Peter Parker's close friend, a chubby, comical guy who's always ready to help his buddy Spider-Man out. My guess is he will, due to a certain turn of events, turn into the Hobgoblin. Just look at Ned's actor Jacob Batalon's Instagram account. We can see from his most recent picture that he has lost a ton of pounds. What for if not to play a certain character? He's an actor after all. An alternate version of Ned that follows the old formula of Peter's best friend turning into the Green Goblin. Think about it. A close contender for the most plausible theory is the reintroduction of Venom, either as friend or foe. For this to make sense, you need to be up to date with the most recent movie released, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, played by Tom Hardy. The movie itself didn't spoil or hint at anything, but if we check the post-credit scene, we see Eddie Brock suddenly being transported to a different setting altogether, as if reality warped. The symbiote doesn't have this ability, but do you know who does? Doctor Strange. Wait, there's more. On the TV screen, we see Peter Parker as Spider-Man. That in itself isn't enough, but what if I told you that this same scene is played on the billboard, both in the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Far From Home and the teaser for Spider-Man No Way Home? This can't be a coincidence, right? Tell us down in the comments below who you think is going to be the last villain. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like if you like it, sub if you love it, and ring that bell so you won't miss it.